everyone, and welcome to another episode of On Campus, here at the Solano College Sports Network TV studio. My name is Nathaniel Thomas, and I'm honored to be joined by the Dean of Liberal Arts, Mr. Neil Glines. Neil, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very thrilled to be able to pick your brain today. Can you tell us a little bit about uh, the job of being the Dean of Liberal Arts and what the day-to-day looks like?
Pretty simple. Like, it's to support the programs that fall underneath the School of Liberal Arts. We've got 15 area disciplines that fall underneath there. And so trying to get faculty and students what they need to be successful. Like, this space here is an excellent example of that, right? So like, you look at what's been taking place in the classroom, and then at the end of semesters or at the end of academic years, instructors will say like, hey, what would really be helpful or be transformational from what we did this semester to the next semester would be this. And then trying to put together funding requests that meet the needs of those particular instructors, but also the students that are found there in the programs as well.
Right, I love that you bring that up because that's something that's always found fascinating, is year on year, watching interviews from previous iterations of this class, you can see how everything's been updated. You mentioned before the last interview you were on, it was in the old building, the library, and I remember seeing that set, and it looked good. It was a professional set, but now it really feels embellished, and it really feels very full of resources for the students. When Pop goes up to you and he says, "Oh, we need this, we need that," is there a sort of procedure of how he justifies what he needs, and how does that go up the chain in terms of procuring the needed materials?
So when at the end of each semester, you take a look at like the student learning outcomes for a particular course and see how those are being met or not met. And then right around, January, February, we put a call out to be like, hey, I'm trying to put the budget together. Let me know what types of things would be helpful. Now, the good news for a program of sports broadcasting, it's also a career technical education program. And so they get access to some funds in addition to like general funds, which is typically what like you'd see like spent for like an English class or a communications class. So there's more funds available, but when you're trying to float all the requests of like 15 different departments and put that forward, we have some of the more expensive departments on campus, right? Because we've got the theater department, we've got music, and we also have sports broadcasting. So trying to, juggle those very demanding requests as well as some of the other requests of departments that maybe don't have some of the technologically advanced requests or high value assets that they're looking for, but are also equally needed in the classroom.
Understood. And just to get a better understanding of the budget resources that the school has now, is that decided by the state of California, or how does that change year on year?
So the funding formula is funded on like how many full-time equivalent students that you have, and then as time has progressed, the matrix has changed a little bit. They look at like success data, they look at like do people move forward, and what types of populations are you serving. And so like I think last year the school's budget was around $55 million, and around 86% of that is like the people who work here. So then the other 14% of that goes to like operational expenses of the college, and then also trying to get the resources in the classrooms that are needed for students.
That's fascinating. So a lot of high level decisions, a lot of critical, um, points that need to be addressed. But let's go back a little bit. I know that you've been working with the school since the year 2000.
Been a while, yeah.
So with the changes that have been going on in the past 25 years, what would you say is the most significant change that you've seen in terms of the quality of the education getting better and the resources?
Certainly, I think like the innovative programs that we have on campus, right? And so like I think two come to mind, and I'll speak specifically to the School of Liberal Arts. So like when I first was here, I was a comm faculty. I was coaching speech and debate with Greg, and we were coaching the speech and debate team. And then Greg had an idea for his passion for sports to try to figure out a way to have like a sports broadcasting program. And so like really early on, some of the stuff that they were doing was like with digital recorders and stuff like that. And then like the evolution of like doing sports here on main campus, and then watching the transition to doing high school sports. For a while they were doing MMA, locally in the summers and stuff like that. And so seeing the passion and evolution, but like Greg's passion and vision for it translating into the students who are in the program and them seeing themselves as like, this is a viable opportunity for me to get my voice out there, or this is a skill set that I can see myself doing, and then wanting to continue that has really been like a pretty radical change. So like even back when it was over in the 100 building, there was a while there where all the stuff was like handheld stuff. So like we would be going down to like Best Buy and buying like some handheld cameras and some laptops. To now where you're looking around the studio here and you're seeing like we have stationary equipment here. We've got TriCasters not only in the studio, but one's the most recent acquisition is one that they can take out for like remote shoots. And so like the evolution of that, like yes, the technology is something that gives students an opportunity to get their hands on stuff that you wouldn't normally get your hands on, even in some four-year programs, or being able to be behind the camera or on the mic. But I think the technology only goes so far, right? Like having an opportunity for people to hear or have someone else see in them the ability or the innate desire of like, hey, I can see you continuing to do this. Like your last interview with a volleyball player, right? And like that player on the way out, Greg's like, hey, I guess you guys call him Pop, we'll say Pop. On the way out, Pop's like, hey, you, if this isn't like you were talking about what your like career path was going to be, but this is really something that you could do as well. And like for a lot of people, having that, um, hearing that for the first time, maybe in somebody's educational career or pathway, and be like, yeah, that is something that I can do, and then let that be the motivation for it. I think another program similar to it, the growth of that program, when I first became dean, we had two classes that were in ASL. They were like ASL 1 and ASL 2. And that was an opportunity for us to grow the program. So we went out for a full-time hire and we picked up an ASL instructor, Gwen Gallagher. And Gwen, in her first year being here, put together an interpreter training program on campus where students are able to, through some courses here on campus, be able to get themselves ready for opportunities in interpreting on campus for her and some of the other deaf instructors that we have, but also through the relationships in a rather short amount of time in the community, give our students opportunities to interface with the deaf community and then have some of those people come back and be mentors for our students is really seeing that program grow. So like from when I first was dean and saw the ASL program where we were offering two courses in ASL a semester to now when you look at the course schedule, you see that we're somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20, 24 a semester. The boom of that program and students being able to see themselves giving back to the community, but also seeing more and more deaf students come to campus because they see this as a place where there's people who can communicate with them and sign, but also see that there's an interest in this campus to have an interpreting program support the surrounding community. Those would be two of the more recent examples of things that have been going on that have seen like transformational changes for students, but also signature programs for the campus as well.
Yeah, I mean that is a huge success story, and that's something I feel like is not highlighted enough at this level of education, where a community college, Solano Community College, is able to, like what you said, in the past 25 years, it sounds like in every department it's grown and it's advanced and it's given opportunities to countless amount of people. If I may, there's one study I was reading about outcomes of youth, and they said that the number one indicator of a successful outcome is having just one positive adult tell them that they can do something. And just having that one is enough to offset the trajectory of maybe some other statistical barriers that they may have to overcome. And I can't help but think about that with this class. A community college is accessible to everybody. And I remember I was telling you earlier when I was transitioning from my old career and I joined this class and I was a little lost. Seeing Pop's enthusiasm and seeing Pop encourage everyone, and give everyone literally every single resource that they need to be successful. It felt like he gave me the key to my future, and it feels like from the bird's eye level view that you have as a dean, that's happening in every other department as well. I know you have an old history with Pop, and he actually did used to, you guys worked on the speech and debate thing together, but he even told me that he judged one of your speech and debate competitions. Can you tell me about your history on speech and debate?
Yeah. So when I graduated high school, I didn't see the education. I thought I was done with it, right? And it wasn't necessarily because I was a bad student, but I didn't know what my passion or trajectory was. And so I went into trades. And so I was in a pre-apprentice program doing sheet metal. I did that for a couple of years. And then at night, I started going back to school. And one of the classes that I took was one of the very first ones was a communications class with an instructor who was going back to your initial point about how people can change your trajectory by having somebody believe in you and see value in what your contributions are. His name was Kevin Tooley. And so he, in one of the very first speeches I did in class, was like, hey, you're pretty good at this. We've got a speech and debate team and somebody just left it and we're looking for somebody to travel to state and national. So my very first two tournaments that I competed in was at state and nationals. And it was from those two experiences that shifted not only getting out of trades but going back to school, but also changing my trajectory of what it was that I was going to do. And so I did speech and debate there at the community college. That's where Greg had an opportunity to see me. I think it was actually at that very first tournament. He saw me either at state or nationals, and then went to a 4-year for 2 years. And part of that, the ability to do that, was based on a speech and debate scholarship. That then went to Cal State Northridge and did some coaching there. When I was down south coaching, that's where I had opportunities to come across Greg a few more times when from the coaching capacity. And then graduating down there, an opportunity came up here for a sabbatical replacement. And so came up here, and even as a competitor, the students here at Solano were always grinders and tough out, for lack of a better term, when you were competing with them or against them. And coaching with Greg here, seeing the opportunities that were available to students, but seeing how students here were willing to put in the extra time and energy to be better than their counterparts at the state and national tournament, made this a pretty easy career decision. And so when a full-time opportunity opened, I applied and was pretty fortunate enough to get it, and been here ever since.
Yeah, I mean, that, again, another great success story. It does sound like the trajectory of your life was altered by a few key decision points. Can you help anyone, let's say there's some students these days who maybe a little lost with their trajectories. Can you sort of contrast where you are now professionally with the student that you were back then before you really knew what you wanted to do?
I think that there was never, I did okay in school, right? I wasn't really good at it, but it wasn't necessarily, I didn't put myself into it. And I think that it was after school and taking night classes at community college where you have something invested in it and you can see yourself in that particular course that you're in or whatever, seeing that, hey, this is something that I enjoy, or this is something that I can see myself continue doing. And then that positive reinforcement, whether that comes from fellow classmates or whether that comes from the instructor that you have, I think that is hearing that and reaffirming it in yourself and then believing in, hey, this is indeed something I can do and continue moving forward to do it. I think it's something that if you get that opportunity, don't second guess that internal voice, continue down that path and see where that takes you. I mean, that's the beauty of this place here at the college, right? Is that it's not just sports broadcasting, it's not just liberal arts, but any number of classes that you may be in here, you're going to have that opportunity where you see yourself in it and you have an instructor who's telling you, hey, this is something that you can continue to do, or you're doing well in this particular topic or this particular area of study, and then using that as the launch pad to then continue down that path and use that as the positive energy you need, because it's not easy, right? Even this ain't easy. It's fun, but there's certainly grinding that goes on here, and knowing Greg like I do, when he would motivate students through coaching, like it's great the end product when you see people coming through, like and they have like a award from nationals or state, or like here where you're sitting here doing interviews today, and like people in the control room are like, hey, he's pretty smooth, and this is something that's pretty easy. But there's hard work and dedication that goes into that, and so like being able to take the criticism and the lumps across the way to get you to where it is, to where you're feeling more comfortable and confident in what it is that you're doing. I mean, put you to where you are here, put me to where I am here, and ultimately, I mean, put Greg, like going back, even back when Greg was like going through the paces, like trying to figure out where it was he was going to coach down south, coached up here, and finding like the place that you ultimately call home, and then giving back to that particular community, I think is functionally what it's all about, and why he's as popular as he is an instructor and continues to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of twists and turns before you find the place that you plant your flag. But you're right, it's not easy at all. I mean, seeing what Pop does every day, every year for his students is always admirable. And we're grateful to have fellows like yourself and like Pop because they make it look easy and they make it look easy for the students. But speaking of the outcomes and giving back to the community, I mean, it seems that there is a culture of empowering the students and giving them the opportunities to go on and succeed. I mean, you mentioned that students from this particular course, sports broadcasting, uh, they've gone on to work for Max Preps. They transferred to SF State for the Becca department, and of course, we have to give a shout out to James Thomas Media. Um, that doesn't happen without a good culture and a good environment of, of teaching and encouragement. Um, how is it that you cultivate that? I mean, it's not an accident. It's not easy, like you said. How is it that you cultivate that environment of being able to have a winning culture in terms of the staffing and how you hire and how you train?
Good question. I think for two things. I think using them, we'll go backwards and we'll start with what you started with. If you look at the alumni of sports broadcasting, the alumni of the program wouldn't want to give back if the program wasn't inspirational or transformative in the way that it changed their life. So like if you look at like James Thomas Media, right? Like Tom, as a student, when I was dean, we crossed paths here when he was, that was back over in the 100 building, right? He's got a, a company now which is very successful, but still provides opportunities for our students to, from here, get work there, but also gives back to the program here. That's not because he has to, that's because he wants to. And the reason he wants to is because he believes in the culture of this place, but more specifically, the opportunities we can provide other people like himself, right? Then when you look, I think of like, that's like the macro, if you look at it, that's like the micro here specifically in sports broadcasting. If you take a look at the macro level, it's like, what is it that you want as when you're making hiring decisions for like the departments on campus, or when you're making decisions of like, what is it that we want to invest our time and resources in, right? You want those same types of things, right? So when you're looking at people's cover letters, or you're looking at them in the interviews, or you get opportunities to see them as adjunct faculty here on campus, right? And what it is that they're doing in the classroom. One of the coolest things that you get to do as a dean is to get an opportunity to see people teach in the classroom, right? So like this particular semester, I'm doing 40 in-class observations, right? And so when you're in there, you can see what faculty do and you can see how students react to it, but you also get an opportunity to like read the reviews that students provide of the courses that they're in. And it's funny that like the trajectory is you start as a teacher and you become an administrator, but the irony is I think I would have been a far better teacher if it had been in reverse, right? Because you get an opportunity to see what types of things people are doing in the classroom and how those things impact students, or how they work, or maybe how the things that they do are different than what you did back when you were in the classroom. And getting to be able to sample all those different philosophies and approaches to how you approach students makes, would make me have a far greater impact if I was able to rewind and start my career over back in the classroom.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting perspective. You get to work backwards, almost as you say, because it does make sense. When you're in the administrative side, then you get to pick the brains of the seasoned teachers and everything. I guess to take it to a more personal side, I understand that you have some sons that play baseball, and I'm sure they're doing very well academically. When they were growing up, did you take a lot of the lessons that you learned? Because I'm sure you see a lot of youth, go through in and out with your career. How does that affect your parenting and helping your children have their own success in life?
I think a lot of it is just like being there, right? It's funny when you look at like this is sports broadcasting, right? And you look at like sports in particular, city sports or rec sports. A lot of times you end up coaching because no other parent wants to do it, right? And so like in full transparency, like I played baseball when I was younger, but wasn't very good at it, right? And so like did it more for like the social, I think of it, and like the camaraderie aspect of it. Um, but when that's the way in which your kids are going to play is because no one else is willing to coach, and then you're in there and you're doing it. You get an opportunity to see like where other kids are and watching them progress and their love for it in those types of situations. And so like there was a few dads that I coached with and will continue to coach with up until both Colin and Mason were able to like go on travel baseball when somebody else was doing the coaching, and that's really where they thrived. But like early on, the investment of like spending time with them, traveling with them, and stuff like that, showing that you care and you're willing to match their effort with your effort, I think was able to help me connect with both the boys, but also connect with the teams that I coach. Like there's still opportunities now where some of Colin's friends, Colin's my youngest, some of Colin's friends still live in Dublin, and like they'll see you around and say like, hey coach or whatever, and come over and like check in and see what's going on. And so that much like coaching speech and debate or like sports broadcasting, you get an opportunity to, put your imprint on someone's life and help maybe put them in a trajectory that's more towards the positive, right? And have a positive impact in their life. Like one of the earlier interviews that was done in here that I had an opportunity to watch back in the control room was somebody's mom was one of Pop's students. And when that student came through here, right, that was back in like 2011, I think it was. And they're like, this was so inspirational for me that I want you to take an opportunity to do it. And so like to see that come full circle and to see, that person's daughter in here conducting an interview, and when asked what was the reason why you decided to be in sports broadcasting was because my parent told me that this was transformational for them. Like that's what you want that to be, right?
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, just hearing that you stepped up to coach when no one else was willing to do it, I guess that's very indicative of the overall culture. I think that this this program and this teaching staff and this school really embodies. I guess I'll end this interview with some fun questions. Do you have a favorite? What would your walk-up song be? You play baseball. What would your walk-up song be?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I was ever good enough to get a walk-up song necessarily, right?
You would pick one today, right now.
If I had to pick a walk-up song, what would my walk-up song be? Why don't we hang on to that? Give me another one. I'll come back to that.
All right, all right. Do you have a favorite all-time movie?
I'm a big fan of Rambo, and then I also like Rocky. So like any of the Rocky films are good.
Classic, classic. Any favorite albums?
I'm a big fan of James Brown. I like a lot of James Brown. Aretha Franklin, also very good. And then also a big fan of Tower Power.
Okay, all right. And then last question, I'm a huge lover of books. There's a quote that says, from Marcus Aurelius, he who has not mastered himself is not fit to rule others. Not that you're ruling over us, but you're definitely giving a good influence to a large number of people. Is there any one book in particular you feel was transformational to the way you see the world and how you conduct yourself in front of other people,
I don't know about a book necessarily. I think that
or any sorts of media?
I can tell you this. I think that watching the way that like Kevin, so going back to like that comm class I told you about when I was in community college, going there at night, watching the way that Kevin was able to bring the best out of people, but also stay out of their way, right? It's like it's easy to be like, hey, this is the way to do something, right? And then not let people experience it for themselves or learn for themselves. And so I think like trying like those lessons translate into being a demon to like stay out of the way. Like I don't need to be in Pop's business, right? I need to give him what it is he needs to be successful, provide the budget that he's requesting to make sure that students' needs are being able to be met. And should a problem arise, try to do the best that I can in the capacities, and the leverage that I have to try to remedy that situation in a quick way to make sure that it's not impacting students or not impacting the overflow or the overall flow of what's going on. And then I guess when people, the other piece of this that we forget is that people are human, right? And like there's things that compete with what's going on in the classroom or what's going on here on campus. And so like when life events happen, be supportive of people when those life events are happening, give them the resources that they need so that they can focus on that. We cover what's going on campus so that when they're able to come back and give back here, that things are in the same place that they were when they left.
Right. Well, I don't think there's a better place to end off than there. So I guess I'd like to speak on behalf of all the current students, all the previous students, and anyone who's interested and any future students who are about to apply for this class. We really thank you for providing all the resources and not just the resources, but for giving yourselves to the mission of this program. So I guess that's going to wrap up this episode of On Campus. My name is Nathaniel Thomas, and we'll see you next time.